Welcome to Laundry and Other Mysteries with your host, the Laundry Diva. First, let me say, life comes at you fast. Trying to run an active and thriving business on my own and put out regular, uninterrupted, as in weekly, podcasts without a sidekick is pretty impossible. I'm going to work on doing better, but I can't promise anything other than that I have a dozen episodes that I have already recorded, so lack of content is definitely not the issue. There are a couple of ways you, as a listener, can help me move things along. One of the things is to share this podcast and its corresponding links with your friends and family on social media. Another of those things is to become a patron of this podcast on Patreon, the link to which you will find in our show notes. If this podcast could raise more money, I could afford to have the podcast edited by a third party and increase the rate at which episodes are published. I've never been good at asking for money, but I am grateful for every listener, so thanks for listening. Moving on. Today's guest is my dear friend Linda Margrave. Linda is a body worker who specializes in practicing body massage on adolescents and people with disabilities. I know a lot of good people, but one of the things I admire about Linda is her heart and the hope she holds out in seeing the best in others, which is very much the way that I approach the world, even when it's not as kind or reciprocal. My platform isn't great. I'm not any kind of influencer. And the podcast is far from the most popular, which is what makes it safe for me to connect you, dear listener, to people who are typically not heard from because they aren't famous or popular. Like the old show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, I want to share the stories and the dreams of the wonderful and interesting people that I meet each day. Some of these people, like Linda, will be people who I have known for a long time and whose message I want to amplify. Some people will simply be interesting people I have met recently who I think we should all get to know better. I believe that everyone has an interesting story, and those stories deserve to be shared and heard. Eventually, one of those stories may help inspire you or someone else. In that case, my work here will be done. So, without further ado or delay, grab your coffee and listen in as Linda and I share some tea with you on everything pets, laundry, pandemic management, and hope in today's episode of Laundry and Other Mysteries.
All right. So, first of all, thank you, Linda, for joining me on Laundry and Other Mysteries. I am your host, Desiree HIckson, also known as the Laundry Diva, and my good friend Linda is joining me today. Linda, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be a part of this podcast.
So tell us what you do, Linda.
Oh, you want me to say more? Okay.
Yes, say some more.
Wow, so I've been a Coloradan all my life. I'm a native. I dealt with some things back in the day, like a traumatic brain injury. I basically caused myself with a bad bike accident, and holistic medicine basically saved me. So now just fast forward to me being over 30, opening a business called Pediatric Holistic Wellness, and we call it PH Wellness for short, and also the play on words of balancing pH. And that happened to be opened before the COVID thing broke out, and it's been an interesting process this whole time. I started my position as a massage therapist for a different company called Foundations for Successful Living, and Tricia Harris, the owner, really inspires me. She's very motivated to create learning environments for older kids that just could use a day activity to go do. So a lot of these kids have a different disability. It could be intellectual or physical. And anyway, I learned that the government is actually providing insurance-covered massages. And so I created a business that was a similar model, but will be an office site with a therapy playroom and a lot of sensory toys and lighting for kids to play with as they come in for a therapeutic service or maybe a tutoring session. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm up to. But on a global scale, I feel very much necessary that it is time for us to get together, to network very strongly with our neighbors. We were just talking about the Mr. Rogers kind of theme for perhaps the year, Desiree, yeah? And I like that. I think this can be a change that is for the good, environmentally speaking, and for small businesses to come together and support one another on a local level, which we can then put on some political pressure into the world and say, hey, human rights actually matter.
Yep, for everyone. Yep, for everyone. All right, so you know what's coming next, right?
Yeah, I was going to say just this morning, because I could already tell we're leading towards the laundry side of things. So I had my door open. I split my time between Canyon City and Colorado Springs, and have a little tiny house where I keep the door propped if it's a nice night like it was last night.
Yeah.
And, an hour before sunrise, of course, the dogs discover a skunk. And yeah, luckily only a little bit of spray. It wasn't too bad, but they both got showers at sunrise, and then Moses, he's my cute little white and black miniature golden doodle. When we were out on a baby hike this morning, just jumped in some water, and we had to do the grooming all over again. But
it's like they're dirt magnets.
They are. It's so true. And you're supposed to clip the fur between their paws. It literally looks like a wrestling match to get that.
No,
but you speak of laundry, and I'm like, well, I'm limited in what I do. I was actually learning about your podcast this morning, which I love, Desiree, how you've put this together. It's really cool. One of my first podcasts ever to listen to. So I was listening to your folk that are doing an cooperation together, and we're talking about, what are their names again?
Janera Hardy and Fauna Bridges.
Nice, yeah. And they're starting some artist co-op stuff.
Oh yeah, James makes beautiful stone and shell art jewelry with copper and other materials, and it looks really great.
Yeah, I love
it. They're tree post cooperative. So if you look them up on the internet, you can get access to his jewelry.
Wonderful. So they were talking about who does the laundry, and then got to the topic of ironing, and one of them irons quite a bit, the other just a little bit, and I'm thinking to myself, I know we have an iron, but with 4 dogs, I have one dog that's a husky, and I tell you, one thing I've got to learn is to separate out the massage sheets away from anything that has anything to do with dogs.
Yeah, because the hair commingles with your sheets and stuff, but there is a slight trick to that, okay? The trick is, if you put it in the dryer first, obviously, hopefully it's not gunky or whatever, but if you put those things in the dryer first and then shake them out, the hair and stuff will first of all get caught in the lint trap, right? And second of all, when you shake it out, the excess will land on the floor. Then put it in the washer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because so far I've figured out that if I do a lint check in the middle of a dry, that seems to help clean out some hair. But also don't overstuff the washer with rugs and things that have dog hairs, because everything gets clogged. It's crazy. I do a lot of.
That is, you do have to be careful of that, because, the washer only has so much space. Now, it can be full, and it will fill with water, and it will wash, but the closer the clothes are packed together, the more likely things are going to cross-contaminate, so to speak. So if there's lots of hair, it's definitely going to get basically rubbed into the other clothes. So you have to be careful about that. And that's regardless of if it's a front loader or a traditional top loader. So
luckily we have a couple bigger.
We've identified, first of all, we should separate our pet things or anything that we know is affiliated with our pet from stuff that typically shouldn't be or isn't pet related. If you do end up, and this is good for human hair too, so if you do end up with stuff with a lot of hair on it, throw it in the dryer first so that the lint trap can catch most of that, and then throw it in the wash to wash out the loose hairs. And then of course you'll throw them back in the dryer later, and that will catch more hair. So it's sort of like a 3-prong attack. And then don't overpack your washer or your dryer for a couple reasons. One is the hair will just keep transferring between items, but the other thing is wrinkles. Wrinkles are more in packed with washers and dryers than they are when you have, say, a half full, or at the very least a 2/3 full washer dryer because they're not squished together.
See, I knew this would get technical on me fast, and just this morning when I was like, okay, I'm proud of myself, I've done laundry at 7 a.m., and here, it's going into the dryer. You know what happened next? I opened the dryer, and there's this nasty smell, and there's all of these sheets that I had just washed, well, actually like a week ago.
Oh, no!
And I guess I hadn't dried completely, so I got to rewash.
Oh, no! Oh,
yeah.
see, and I was looking for that, too.
But I like a good brain, yeah. Oh, shoot. But I will say that I'm grateful that there is a washer and dryer available. That we're really lucky to have that in like every household practically. People that end up going to the laundromat, I sure feel for them. And then I'm thinking, well, just about five weeks ago or so, when the pandemic situation started happening, I remember taking what I thought might be my last shower that was hot. That would be so glorious. I don't know. I was going into sort of panic mode of like, how deep is this rabbit hole? And it was interesting because it changed my level of gratitude for what we do have.
Right, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I look at the washer dryer situation and go, you know, I'm glad I don't have to lug all of this stuff to another location because, you know, I've worked in laundry for over 8 years. And I can tell you know, I definitely appreciate the fact that those things exist. You know, that there is a place for anybody, whether they have a washer and dryer already or if they have a need for one, they can go and they can take their big or small items and you know, kind of hang out. But it's not fun, you know. You got to hang out with people you don't know. You might even have to hang out with people you don't like. You might have to fight for the washers you want. You know, it can be very inconvenient. It can be convenient on one hand, obviously, because access, but inconvenient on the other hand because you're sharing that space with somebody. It's not private like at home. And,
I can see how that would be problematic pretty quickly.
Yeah, but in the time of COVID, now you can't even in some places you don't want to hang out in the same building as the laundromat. So you go in the building, you throw your clothes in the washer, you sit in your car for 30 to 45 minutes, then you go back. If you have a car, exactly. I'm sorry, that was definitely sort of ableist language. If you don't have a car, you're going to have to sit on a park bench or where place for you.
Yeah, I'm like, what is the weather? So, you know, this kind of makes me think about what what represents in creating an atmosphere where we can go and get all of our things done in a day. We can see all the different types of doctors we need to. We can, it's like going to a mall where people can walk around and they choose their own doctor by kind of meeting them at first and having those times to really to get to know you phase. And it's a very community-oriented atmosphere that includes, you know, the laundry, the hairdressing, the kids' nursery, you know, the yoga. I crave a place like that in Canyon City where we could actually have a cafe downstairs where some of my team and those that choose that they want to volunteer or get part-time jobs or something practicing serving people their food or their coffee. For the fact that moms are sitting there having their little mommy time, and there's a little playhouse that's literally right, you know, visible to the moms, so that the kids are happy playing, and maybe we have a few therapies and tutor skills going on upstairs with a yoga class.
Great. Yeah, see, that sounds fascinating, and like it would be like a very relaxed environment and welcoming too.
Yeah, that's what it's about. So thank you for having me join you on this podcast. I'm so appreciative and very grateful that I even know now what a podcast is. But checking out your channel it's very intriguing because you're mixing what would be a very technical and boring topic with the life. So,
I don't find laundry boring though, Linda.
Really?
No. Yeah, sometimes it can be pretty boring. It can. Okay, so speaking of laundry, so we've talked about your dog, we've talked about dog hair and stuff, but I'm going to ask you like a super secret question. So, like, what is your biggest, aside from the dog hair, what's your second biggest challenge in getting laundry done?
Oh, it's, the answer came to me right away. It's either choosing to battle with my laundry or have a relationship or make friends with my laundry. So there's times where I just need to be lickety-split on time with things, and I need to put things away and just have a positive attitude about it, and that is my choice. But there's also times where maybe I deserve that time off, and I can just sit there, like, watching the basket for, as it was this last week, about a week, this clean laundry is supposed to be getting sorted and everything, and, I'm just loving my life and also cherishing the time that I'm giving myself in self-care time.
Right.
But, every time I see the basket, instead of getting angry at it, I'm like, hey, I will get to you, and when I get to you, we will be friends. I'm going to go through this together.
It reminds me of a post I posted on my Facebook. It's somewhat offensive because it has salty language, but it's true, though. Sometimes you see that basket, and you just kind of go, you know what, dude, I'll get you later.
We are in this together.
Like, I definitely need some me time now. I cannot focus on whether I need to fold my socks right now.
Yeah. Oh, then socks. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. It's tough for me. All those, especially with moves going on and living in different locations. Whew, you miss a sock, and then you've got a huge drawer of them just popping out. And
yes, you do. And that's one of my pet peeves, socks. Sometimes, like, I have clients, and especially if they have children, and there's, 20 pairs of socks, but only 10 of them match.
And then, I tell myself, well, maybe I'll just use these extra socks that I know are never going to find their match one more time as, like, a dust rag or, to clean with something, and then I'll just throw it away. But then I can't get across the guilt of throwing that away because it's
right, because it's like it's fabric. It's useful still. What else can you use it for?
I've got an idea. You just reminded me of this idea, which can kind of let other people know what the deeper stuff of what's going on within my project. We have this property I'm hoping can turn into a escape for those who really deserve and need it, and basically a family retreat if they wanted, like, a little vacation. And we have neighbors right next door, like a cowboy is living in our property when we're not there. But we're going to set it up so there's, like, a rotation where people can come out either for a family stay or for a retreat if they wanted to host something. This is in the future, of course, with liability cover. But also set up, like, a day schoolhouse, an animal care center, an apprenticeship for a lot of different crafts, and, of course, an artist cooperation. And what I was just thinking about with those socks, as random as it is, I would love to be able to lift a few different types of flags on our property, and, of course, always keep the Earth flag somehow lifted and raised, and, of course, the American flag. In fact, I'm dyeing my dog's hair, as weird as it may sound, red and blue over the next month here to turn him into a little patriot so that we remember not to fight each other over this next election.
Nice.
To empower people really back to the liberty of what it is, the justice to be an American.
Right.
Yeah, so anyway, back to the socks. I was thinking if we could do something like create a really big flag made with all these random socks that basically describes our Unitarian principles. As one way a person could literally leave a footprint with us.
Right. They could leave a lost sock or leave a sock and know where the lost sock is.
Yeah, they could find it on the flag because we'll sew it into the flag and they'll be like,
right, I love that idea.
Oh, man.
I did actually give you another idea. It's less celebratory than that, but it's still useful. And that is, you can take those socks and take several and stuff one sock and make a dryer ball with it.
Oh, wow.
Turn them into fireballs. So let's say, depending on the size of the sock, maybe put 5 or 6, maybe 8 maximum socks in one single sock, and then tie a knot in it or sew it up. Probably a knot, though. Tie a knot in it, and then throw that in the dryer with your clothes so that they'll tumble a little better.
Okay, and I honestly don't know at which circumstance you would use a dryer sock or another.
Okay, well, normally you could use a wool ball, a dryer sock, or a tennis ball, right? And the idea is these balls get wound up in your clothes, and they toss your clothes around in the dryer. Now, it only really works if it's only 2/3 or less full. So if you only have 3 or 4 items, the dryer balls work great for that. If you have a 2/3 dryer, it'll help them dry a little bit faster, not a lot faster. So if it's going to be like a 30-minute dry, it'll probably take 10 minutes off of the normal dry time or whatever.
Oh, so more efficient, and obviously you're not going to be using it with your delicate so it doesn't tear it apart, right?
Exactly, exactly. But it's great. The wool balls are really great for sheets or items that you normally might, if you ever found it, iron. So they're great for like polo shirts that you iron, pillowcases, blankets, big items, right? Things that that sometimes settle in the dryer, and then you have like that big wet patch or whatever on it. If you use the tennis balls or the dryer balls, or in this case the softballs, then you could increase the I guess we could call it the real estate on your blanket that would get dry in one sitting versus having to turn the dryer over. Does that make sense?
Oh, I'm sorry, I just fell asleep a little bit there. Real estate and laundry in the same sentence? Really? Wow.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of how big a blanket is.
Awesome. Well, since you went there with it, I'm going to go to what is the dryer ball in our world right now going on in like the metaphorical? What is the metaphorical drying ball that is tussling with our entire world's laundry right now?
I think like if using that as a metaphor, I would have to say people coming together.
Oh, that was better than my answer, because I couldn't think of like the first, but I'm just thinking the whole time the pandemic.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because for me, the dryer ball is a support in your laundry program, right?
Okay,
so when I think of the work as a dryer ball out in the world, it would be something that people can rely on to help support them in some way.
Yeah, awesome. So we're gonna get
dry. The pixels there. So tell me some more about what it is that your retreat area. How far have you gotten on that? Have you started like building fences or anything, or have you? The last time we were talking about the water or whatever it was. Yeah,
sure. So to give you an idea, it's about 2 hours or a little under from Colorado Springs Drive-wise. I've been doing things like really getting to know the neighbors. We have a rancher who has over 100 cattle and might be willing in the future to host a field trip for a small amount of people. Another person who has a really interesting psychic kind of connection with the Native Americans in some interesting ways, where he actually had this just protected their society, let's just say that, and I'll leave it there. But he has a property with 2 natural springs and was hoping to be a part of the Wounded Warrior Project, and is actually excited about the prospects of us bringing hippotherapy his direction, because he has a barn and stable. And yeah, he's an older gentleman, Mr. Russell. He's very well equipped on his property for having horses because of the creeks and because of his stable. So we might set up like a work-off operation there if we could. Try to get some horses that would be well-mannered and mild for the kiddos with some disability that might have to ride with a mentor or something.
Right, so maybe sort of like therapy courses.
Yes, absolutely. Indeed. That's what it's all about, I think. And then making connections with people, like we have a cowboy staying in our house, which is really kind of a fun design. It's made of shipping containers. We had nothing to do with the build. It was from people from Tennessee that built this. But yeah, it's off the grid, and the best feature, in my opinion, is when you just look at the view in front, because you get this beautiful mountain range. It's really picture perfect. Would make an ideal spot for weddings, which could eventually bring in a lot of revenue. But yeah, so as far as the build goes right now, we're doing a lot of rudimentary tractor work, just kind of scraping out spots so the dogs don't get as many burrs, and we have to deal with the mice population. I'm just starting a giant compost that's far away. Hopefully we'll track them there instead. There's inside the house, Nick, my boyfriend, and I are going to be putting in a floor in a couple days here. And that's because the original house has just shipping container floor. So there's a lot of quirks to the property. There is something still going on with the water we need to get fixed. In fact, we're looking for somebody who would be willing to drive that far, that has expertise in solar energy and, knows how batteries operate, all the way to it's an instant hot water heater we're looking at. We have some radiant floor heating in the crawl space we have to pick out and put in a different spot. So there's going to be some construction. But I'll tell you about the barn, which is pretty exciting. It's a really large space, and if you could imagine into the future when we've created this whole thing, one thing we're going to be doing is ecosystem rehabilitation. So we'll be making alliances with as many people and companies that want to protect our land as possible, including like a monarch butterfly sanctuary and you name it. Somebody comes along and wants to contribute, we'll probably have their flavor in there. So in the barn, I'm hoping one day we can have it set up where we actually have a forge inside, which could potentially heat the property or the barn when we have it in operation. It could be connected with a kiln or perhaps an outdoor pizza cookery. And I'm hoping to hang some silks from the ceiling for dancing, as well as create a sort of rehabilitative spot where we could have physical therapy go on. There's a lot of my company and a lot of the people I really stick around are those that are dealing with some type of medical trauma of the past or some disability or, and I think instead of us having to be kicked down, what we need to do is just say, hey, you know what, we can deal with this together and let's put our heads together. So, for instance, my administrative assistant is named Sonja Baker, and she is in Canyon City. Sonja is a miracle in herself. She has a severe spina bifida and is in a wheelchair. Yet she is motivated enough to do what she can to take steps. And she literally can get out of her wheelchair and use high bars to basically walk. And then it helps her back a lot, which is really just promoting her health. So, so in the barn, not only would love a physical therapy area for assisting so that Sonja could even try working on the silks, but that we'll also have like a sort of jungle gym climbing wall that would lead up to a protected and completely safe ball pit or something of the like for kids to play and have their imaginative time. And then overall on the property, I'm hoping that we could create a spot where one of the main goals is actually agriculturally related, create a few eco-friendly greenhouses with recycled material as much as possible and turn that into an entire educational experience where we can have people step in with their own creative input, and over time, hopefully, we will have aquaponic food growing, as well as from the soil itself. There's this company in town. I constantly have these little joking arguments with this company's called New Roots, and they just opened. They joke, the soil is what you want to grow your food in, not water. So we could have an experiment, an ongoing decade-long experiment on what type of aquaponics works best, what construction foundation is holding the heat best. Does geothermal heat work well? What are the problem areas with solar? And so if we had this going, what I'm hoping we could do is create a safe little camper's haven that would be away from the house, not even in the view, but where people could actually have their retreats. They could stay in a couple teepees and yurts and have an outdoor kitchen and very community-oriented, but also with the ability for individual families to feel they have their own vacation and don't have to see another soul if they don't want.
Right. I love that idea. I love that idea for the retreat to be kid-friendly, too. So, like, a lot of retreats they're good, good for the spirit and good for adventure, if you're a hiker and so forth, but they're not really designed for families or kids. But I like the idea that this would be a connection for the whole family, not just mom and dad or for older kids.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been working on a mission statement that's related to the company PH Wellness, which I think I came to my final words, which will be just a little phrase I'll use from now and again. So, feed the future. And I would choose this because there are so many different wavelengths that we could go on with what does it mean to feed our culture, our people, and ultimately I would like us as Coloradans to be more independent and self-sustainable. Certainly one of the leading states in the world to become extremely environmental. It would be wonderful, for instance, to host Greta Thunberg here once, or Dr. Stephen Greer, who knows all the science behind UFO phenomena and, individual meditation groups and things, But yeah, ultimately, with the COVID problem, I really do worry about the stress of our community as a whole. And I think that just that time out in nature when you can just reset, and maybe you have people around you and maybe you don't. Maybe you just need that time to re-energize your aura away from everything. This is precious to us. These are our human rights that we deserve to defend and promote for one another.
Right, because we still need the space and the freedom to be spiritual if that's what we choose. And I kind of like the idea of making Colorado sort of a safe place for that. The idea that we could be the leader in allowing people to express themselves and that it be a safe place for them to feel or express their spirituality, whether that be in a singular meditation or in a group meditation setting, where a retreat such as yours or Tamara Hurl's are par for the course, not extraordinary at all,
Yes, in fact, it could be expected, not even just within Colorado, but across the globe.
Yes, that would be wonderful. And then where you could just say, you know what, it's Friday, I'm feeling stressed out, I need to get away, and I want, and I just need to be, 5-minute drive outside of town or whatever, and boom, you're in a safe place where you can get, see fresh air and put your feet in the dirt and get your hands dirty if you want to, especially if you say live in an apartment and you can't really do that sort of thing. I love the idea of making that sort of access available to everyone, because science has shown that the closer you can get to nature, the better it is for your mental well-being, not just your physical health. And I know now is a great time to kind of focus. That's all right. It was a great time to be worrying about that since we have to be social distancing. That doesn't mean we have to be cooped up in our apartments or our houses. We should still be getting out and looking at the trees and smelling the flowers and petting our dogs and whatever we need to do to get engaged with nature. I really believe that nothing should stop us, but if we had access to retreats for mini vacations, how amazing would that be?
Yeah, it would be so cool. To me, there's a disparity going on that doesn't get talked about very often, which is that social disparity between those who have money and those who do not. And what ends up happening is those who have the money get food spotted.
Yeah.
And just like you said with going out into nature, you can scientifically prove that's good for a person's being and their energetical and their health level. Same goes for travel. It's extremely good for your brain. And the more new environments that are safe that you can get to, the more expansive your imagination gets, and therefore the more happy in general you're going to be. And that's, I guess, one of the biggest qualms I ever had seeing on the tip of the iceberg what was going on down below, and going, wow, this is not even fair. And how do we make it fair? How can we try to bring the power back to the people? Because the majority.
Exactly. Yes, and I think a lot of people are kind of starting, if they hadn't already been, they're starting to really wake up to that idea, that the inherent unfairness that we've kind of been living with for a very long time, and they're starting to realize that there are ways that we can open that up to be more fair, and so people are starting to take the steps to do that.
So maybe it's a good time to mention here, we would appreciate finding connections in many, many categories of whatever hobby you have. But one would be, we need a private jet, please. I would love
anything to help.
Yeah, so let's aim high here. And I'd love to build up to a point where we have a timeshare sort of deal with a captain of a nice yacht. So the jet will get us to the ocean, where that yacht will get us on a mini vacation before we get to our main stay. Then maybe we have like a month in one place. We travel around just a bit, but we certainly know these people because we've gone every year for a few years, and we've established a job while we're vacationing. So we have a home. We have our family can easily travel with us, and we've got a great job because people look forward to us coming back every year. And then Des can hit me up and say, hey, Desiree, where's one of the best places you would love to travel?
Ooh, I wouldn't mind going to Italy.
All right. So Des hits me up one day and she goes, you know what? I've been enjoying everything I'm doing, but I could really use a vacation right now, and it just happens to be a good time to do it. Do we know anybody through our connections all the way to Italy? And we look online, right, because we've got all this on our Google Drive or something, and we go, let's check this out. And our computer does a lot of that, smartness for us. But then, boom, look at that. We've got not 6, but 12 connections in Italy. You could choose your spot, and one happens to be available tomorrow.
Right. Oh, I want to plan that right away.
It's nice to visualize these things. Maybe they will.
Yes, it is. And the more you visualize it, the better you can plan it, too, because then you can decide what it is you really need, how you're going to get there, who you need to contact to make that happen. But, if you can start putting those things in place, and if we as a community can build sort of a cooperative, I think that's sort of the word we're looking for here. If we could build a relaxation cooperative, right, of people who have the resources to provide property that's beautiful and accessible, who can provide tools or equipment, talent, someone who can fly a plane, who's willing to donate, who's willing to be part of a cooperative for that. And sometimes in this way, especially when we're talking about cooperative, we don't even necessarily mean free. We just mean that we're all working in sort of a network where we agree to what the terms are.
Right. Ooh, good language. And that's, I think, right where we have the opportunity to direct the business from now on, especially onto such topics as, medical and school, things that people just deserve their rights to be able to choose.
Exactly.
Well, there will still be money and fiscal responsibility involved. But what I like about this idea is that we could have people or businesses operate as a shareholder in a business that is multifaceted. It's connected with hundreds of businesses. And as they profit, so do you, just retrospectively.
And the profit may just be you have access to these things, or the profit could be if you are like an active member of an organization that does flights around the world or whatever.
Yeah, so it gives you an incentive. You're able to put in what you feel you can, and then you get out something that's an equal share to that. It's cool ideas.
I know, we're just full of ideas, and that's why I love you, because you dream big, and so we can, when you have a big picture, then you can start breaking it down into little puzzle pieces and maybe making smaller pictures that are more accessible at a given time or whatever. So I love that. I love dreaming with you, and you're a lot of fun to do that with.
Thank you. Yeah, and I didn't even tell you of the update, and to update audience real quick.
Awesome.
To talk to Desiree about the potential where my company could, through the services provided once we earn full Medicaid services, we have the opportunity basically to create activities like community connector, mentorship. We have other things like homemaker, respite, massage, but I'm excited about that mentorship and that community connector role. So I've been thinking through, like, what kind of activities can we create where our clients would actually enjoy an hour or two of this activity and helping us, but helping them in their education and their cultivation of a skill, and how could we basically facilitate to the greater good, especially people that are in need. And we ended up running into a group through you, in fact. Hope Advanced is a couple named Tim and Brownie Richardson, and they are, their heart is golden on wanting to help those who are coming off of the streets, maybe just got out of a prison situation, or really kind of run down and just need a handout. Hand up, really, is what they would say. So facilitate, first of all, clothing. So they're going to be opening a thrift store. And actually, good news, I think, so far as I understand it, they were under contract last time I talked to them, and they're really close to getting that opportunity to get the property they wanted, which is really in the middle part of town, probably 10-minute drive from Miriam's place. And Desiree and I talked a while ago about the potential of PH Wellness receiving donations from the public, which then can be donated to Hope Advanced. But the process of getting them clean is a whole conversation in itself. And if all goes well, we can manifest that Desiree's laundry service, the Diva's laundry service, can be a part of facilitation.
Yes, and then and part of that would also be recruiting or taking on volunteers who are willing to learn how to do laundry.
Yeah, exactly. The mentorship.
People how to do that,
Yeah, that would be very exciting to see, and that's a tangible example of the co-working atmosphere I think we're talking about, where everybody benefits.
Yep.
Yeah.
And through each step, people who are willing to learn can step in and learn, and then they learn a skill that they can take someplace else, whether they stay with Hope Advanced or whether they move on in life or whatever. And that's the idea, and that's the whole idea of another way, of bringing the community together, because we're educating one another. Yeah,
and that's kind of something I feel a lot of kids missed out on. I know growing up and having to go to school 9 to 5, or actually early in the morning. I just remember that every day. Yeah, for however many years.
Yeah, when you have to be up at 7 and off to the school bus by 8:30 or whatever it is.
Yeah. I think a lot of kids end up being in a mild state of depression over that schedule. Sometimes the schedule is good for keeping them grounded in a pattern, and there's definitely positives to that sort of schedule. But I do feel that education could become more refined, where we see each other's talents at an earlier stage, and basically help for individuals to choose what they want to do. And so they would have little opportunities of practicing. Oh, well, do I want to try growing food? Do I want to try working on cars, working in the art industry, the music, grounded into how can I make fun out of this whole laundry sorting process? And that's a stepping stone so that we can network. There's actually probably some little gems that I'm assuming that you're pulling out of laundry service that is something I never would have thought of. Like, okay, you can enjoy that more than I realized.
Before I started doing laundry, I didn't actually think much about whether or not it would be an enjoyable type of job or whatever. It was when I started in laundry, it was because I needed a job. But once I got into it, it became sort of, it became enjoyable. It became sort of my zen place, because when you're doing something by rote so often, it sort of just becomes part of your physical activity. When you know how to fold skirts a certain way or fold sheets a certain way, and you do it a lot, it's just sort of like, it's the same as, you know, getting up every morning and going to school at the same time and hopping on the school bus and getting to the bell before class starts and so on. It's very similar in that way, in that it brings me peace because it's orderly.
I like that. Okay.
And I think young people or people who are new to, say, working regularly can find a peace in the orderliness of laundry. I know that sounds like way too zen, but it's true. I think you're spot on with that. Absolutely. It's like a zen, finding your zen. And by being able to find that in the folding of laundry, you then look to the rest of your life as choosing that. Yeah. Well, you know, one of my favorite activities when I'm doing laundry is solving the world's problems because it's so quiet, right? There's not a lot going on. You're just sitting or standing there folding sheets or whatever, and so you get a lot of time to think while you're going fold over, okay, tuck here.
Yeah. And I have a few technical questions coming up, speaking of.
Okay.
One would be, with those masks that we're having to wear now, I presume just hand wash them. I learned don't stick them in the washer necessarily.
Well, it depends on how sturdy it is. I mean, if it's super sturdy, for sure. But like if it's got like one of those vents or something on it, definitely not. You definitely want to hand wash that. And the truth is, they're so small. Especially if you're using one, then absolutely wash it by hand. Just a little bit of. You don't even need a lot of soap. A little bit of hand soap. And, you know, rub it like you're washing your hands, you know, squish the soap out, rinse with cold water, you know, 3 or 4 times to make sure you get all the soap out and just let it air dry. Just hang it up, you know, in the shower while you're sleeping.
I think that's working better for me, being that we have dogs. It seems like if I ever stick it in the wash,
in your situation, you definitely do not want to put it in the washer. I've done it both ways. I hand wash my own masks, but sometimes my clients will give me like a bundle of masks that they've worn over the week, particularly people from out of town, and I just throw them in the wash. I haven't had any issues with them. The real concern isn't even so much the materials that the mask is made out of, but sometimes the elastic around the ears, if it's elastic that is around the ears, it can get caught on something in the wash, and it can get stretched out. It's something that I do, even though the masks that I prefer tend to be the tie-ups, because it's so small and because I want to be able to find it easily in the washer and dryer, I use a linen bag, you know, one of those small, like a delicates bag for your underthings. I use a linen bag for my masks. I've been doing that, So I throw them in there, and then I throw them in the wash, and then instead of me going, oh, my gosh, where's my mask in all of these socks and underwear, I can go, oh, there's the linen bag. So I'll grab that, and then I can throw that in the dryer real quick, or I can take it out and let it air dry, depending on whatever it is I'm doing with it.
Okay. You know your stuff on this topic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When, for a short time. Huh?
I bet your kid's well-versed.
Yes, at least one of them. I do have a child that is pretty much the non-masker. I usually have to kind of enforce the mom's rules on that. But my kids are well informed on the topic itself and how to take care of them. In other words, because the science seems to be that the coronavirus is airborne, and it can't be spread just by touching cloth or whatever. I usually require my kids to at least hang up their mask when they get home so that it can air dry if it's got spittle on it or whatever.
That's a good idea. And the sun, if it's like not a windy day and it's hold it out there.
The sun to disinfect it a little bit. But for the most part, I don't encourage my kids to wash their masks like every time we leave the house, but like every other time at least, or at the very least once a week. And so they don't go out a lot, so, it's a toss-up, but for the most part, if we happen to have a busier week, I don't make them throw it in the wash every visit, but I do try to get them, it also depends on how long we've been out. So if we go out, but we just go to one location, but we're not around a lot of people, definitely leave it to air dry or whatever. But if it's been a long day and we had more than one stop and we had to bump into 2 or 3 dozen people, you know, like at the grocery store if we have to do a pickup or whatever, then, like, you know, I'm one of these people, I strip down to my socks when I get home after doing a lot of peopling, is what I call it.
Oh.
And so that I can just get all of that, I can just get all of that off of me, and then I will throw my mask in, even if it's only one day that I've been wearing it. But typically, if I'm just doing quick runs, which is most times, I'll just take it off, hang it up, and let it go. But like I said, I use a linen bag to throw the mask inside so that it won't get lost in the wash. But I definitely recommend if you have pets, do it separate.
Yes. Okay, so then I've got one challenge question for you, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
But before I forget the thought, I had been talking about our retreat area. We're going to call that Vital Access. And
that's right.
The whole development of it is going to be Vital Access Project. We will hopefully be affiliating with a nonprofit that would help us build some supplemental income for kids that don't have money to put forward for therapeutic services.
Right.
And, we could even have camps for kids that are really struggling from, like, the loss of a family member all the way to a terminal illness. So, I'm
really excited for your Vital Access project because we've been talking about it for a long time. And so I'm like, and every time we talk about it and you talk about that you've got a new piece out at the property or whatever you're doing, I'm like, it's coming together. It's going to be amazing when it finally gets open, you know.
It finally happens. And Miss Diva of all trades, speaking of,
that's
one
right.
thing I can't wait for is a benefit concert that we sponsor, maybe an individual who's trying to, for instance, I've got a friend trying to get to California that's a musician, Jordan Smith, who is dealing with being half paralyzed but managing to walk without a cane. And he's a fine musician even despite. So he actually was holding a guitar when he came out of a coma, and his friend was assisting him, and Jordan started strumming a guitar again. That's how he actually came out of a coma.
Nice.
But so with you in mind, I would love to see the topping on the cake is Miss Diva comes out on the stage and sings what she'd like to sing at that concert.
See, that would be amazing. And you know what? I never turn down a chance to sing. Nope.
All right.
I will sing wherever asked.
I can't wait. Really, we're going to make that happen. Okay, so just a challenging side note to that is the couches that we have inside the house right now have definitely got mouse poop on them, and they've been through a rough patch here. So I have to pull off all this canvas that's almost like blue jean material.
Right.
Each one would take up the amount of a machine. But what would I put in the machine? I mean, obviously I'm going to shake out all the dirt I possibly can.
Right.
I would probably end up just using some vinegar and bleach and some soap.
Well, you can
get that clean.
A couple things you might try. Well, I'm thinking vinegar, definitely. You could also, especially if we're going for something that's just like less chemically and less soapy. So you want to use something like, one of the soaps that I use is Zote or soap flakes.
Huh, okay.
Because they don't usually have like the same sulfates and phthalates like the commercial laundry typically does.
Okay.
With vinegar. Now, what I might do, though, is for you, I would recommend probably soaking in vinegar for a bit. And then doing a soap and baking soda, so like the Zote and baking soda or Zote and borax to clean.
Okay.
And you might use, I have a recipe that you can probably hear on the podcast before this one airs.
Okay.
A quick laundry detergent that you can make for yourself, which is Zote, super washing powder or borax, and Epsom salt. And Epsom salt works as a water softener.
Oh.
So, but it gets your clothes, it'll get your clothes or the covering on your sofa, it'll get it nice and clean. And if you use just a few drops of essential oil, it'll make it smell nice too.
Well, that's a great idea. Okay.
Yeah, and the last batch I made is lavender, and so when the stuff comes out of the dryer, it's still, even though I used it in the washer, it still has that nice little lavender fragrance, but it's light. It's like super light, but I love it. But for your thing, I would soak in vinegar first, and then use the soap concoction to clean it and rinse all that excess vinegar out. And so it should get rid of any smell that you have from any critters that have been on it. And hopefully any stains. But you might take a soap bar, like soap does come in the soap bar form, or flakes, so you can get a soap bar. Just use Dove, any kind of hand soap that you have in the house. If you have bar soap, just take that bar soap and just rub it. Oh, like if you've got Castile soap, like Dr. Bronner, take the soap and just rub the stains that are in there.
Okay.
And if you're concerned about the stains themselves, just use a grater to take off the excess soap, so that any contaminants or whatever, just throw those in the wash with the new flake soap or whatever. But take a soap bar and rub the stains you see, and then throw that in with the vinegar solution, so that'll help with the smell. The stains will get softened, and then use the soap solution to wash all that stuff out. And the Epsom salt will help it rinse better, and then boom, throw all of that in the dryer when it's all done with your sock.
Okay.
With your sock balls. And that should help it dry a little bit better. It's going to be a little bit of a chore, but I think if you're trying to save these items, it'll be worth the effort.
So yeah, I will definitely try that. I had kind of given up on the stain.
And if you want, I can, when we're done with this discussion over the next day or two, I can send you what I just said.
Well, that's
so
very sweet.
I can share that with you in an email or a text message.
And re-listen to it. So thank you. I'll look up that recipe. Awesome. Well, that's been very helpful information. I really appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for coming on and being like a last-minute wingman for me, because I was trying to figure out, I'm trying to make sure that, I keep these going, because I know there are people that anticipate. Before what I was doing, I was like, I'm just going to do whenever. But I hear people all the time going, so when are you going to do another episode? And I'm like, okay.
All right.
So, I can't let them slow down, so I got to keep them coming. So, I'm like, if somebody calls out and says I can't do it this week, that means I got to go through my what do they call that, my rotary list or whatever, and go and say, hey, Linda or whoever, and can you come on the podcast, please? I need a guest. So I'm glad that
and if push comes to shove, you can always go. If push comes to shove, you can always go back to how can I relate the two topics of laundry and life philosophy.
Yep. I mean, the truth is, laundry kind of is life. Sometimes you can get it done and it's successful. It comes out nice and clean, and then other times, no matter what you do, the stains don't come out. The stain doesn't get dry.
And maybe you should have had the door shut so you didn't have a skunk kind of wander near the living room. But
yes.
Such is life.
Yes, a skunk too. That is one problem I have never really had to deal with, but that's definitely something I probably should do some research in case somebody else comes up with that issue again. But I still argue vinegar. And if it's not white, maybe a little bit of tomato, like diluted tomato juice or something. I don't know. I'm just guessing at this point. I know it gets out the smell on humans.
Well, being a novice with laundry, I do know the one thing I've been advised by my mother, because it's environmental, is vinegar. And I usually just kind of bloop and put a little floosh in the wash with the one tab I just put in. And it seems to do a much better job with a little vinegar in it.
Oh, yeah. And vinegar is like an all-purpose. Vinegar is great for as a fabric softener as well. So if you're like a lot of my clients, they don't like fabric softeners, they have allergies or whatever. I use like a half a cup of vinegar and replace for fabric softener, and it does the same job.
Oh, very good. Do you know, would woolite be good for this canvas couch cover? Somebody mentioned woolite to me, and
woolite is good. Well, yeah, woolite is kind of up there with the kind of soap that doesn't typically get too sudsy, and that's what you want, because it's going to be difficult to rinse soap out of that thing. So you want something that's going to give you less bubbles. It's going to get it clean, but it's not going to get soap embedded in it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
That's why I recommended the Zote, because it doesn't suds up like typical soap or whatever, and it's a lot better. It's even better for your skin. So
is that spelled Z-O-T or Z-O-T-E?
Z-O-T-E.
Okay, Zote. Great.
I think I'm pronouncing it right. I have no idea.
I'm going to go to the store and buy some. I'm going to find
awesome,
it.
yeah. You can find it on pretty much almost any store where they sell laundry supplies. You can get it. Now, the soap flakes may be a little bit more difficult to find, but they do exist. You can always Google it and find them. I prefer the soap flakes just simply because I make so much soap. Braiding it myself can be a hassle.
Yeah, indeed. Makes sense. Well, cool. I think we have...
All right. So do you have anything else coming up besides your work with Hope Advanced, or was preparing Vital Access for future visitors? You got anything else going on locally or coming up real soon?
I guess I should mention, since you like music, we are working with that person, Jordan Smith, I mentioned before. His goal is to actually make it back to California, where he could make more influence with music, and he's making that sort of connection across our country right now, looking at trying to be able to travel back and forth from sea to sea and have influence with the music world. He's got a really massive amount of musical instruments and knowledge. So what we are doing, Jordan is working with the Colorado Springs Conservatory as well as the ARC store, and I just got to attend one of their little music events. It was a Zoom class for this pretty basic music stuff, but it's fun.
Right.
They create their own little song and stuff. And yeah, one of my goals is to start asking the public for if they are getting rid of something musical related. What we would do is, as PH Wellness, we would try to receive that, see if Hope Advanced could help us with the storage and the possible sale. But all of it would be aimed towards Jordan's fund to assist him on his journey and to help strengthen connections even to, say, music teachers in school, and assist them with the new teaching mechanisms available to us. And I guess the other thing I'd love to mention, too, is that I'm hoping that we could develop a strong enough cooperation for tutoring children, that we could rent a small space and assist with kids just having some decompression time, have like an area where they can really play and use their imaginations and build fairy gardens and all sorts of fun, but all the way to assisting them to stay on track with their education, even despite all the stresses around them. Yeah.
So like a place for kids to connect in ways they can't typically do on a regular basis.
Yes, it would be like almost like a Disney World indoors. Hopefully we'd have it set up where kids can come in and choose their curtains and choose their lighting and music and choose their activities. So very Montessori or yeah, and a lot of their education would be outdoors, and maybe they're still going to their online school or having to attend public school a little bit, but this would help to facilitate the fun in life, to help them join in the world and find what they want to do and find apprenticeship programs. And of course, with anybody who is struggling, that would be who we want to pay extra attention to and help lift them up. For those with disabilities, Sonja Baker is creating an advocacy group. So that way they kind of can speak about and feel for each other about what they're going through, but how does the public facilitate in a way that we can move forward and give more honor to those who have a particular disability and often get overlooked. So how can we pay attention to that and actually create a solution? Much like if we were to, in our communities, pay more attention to the homeless crisis and start our own community compost pile that would be about supporting our people through processes of struggle to find jobs again, to find work not only that is part-time or volunteer, but eventually work themselves up through to the point where they would be selling food for restaurants. And that would be something that even the restaurants could participate with and be able to be a part of our program to advertise that they're interested in local produce and supporting our local community. So I just believe in sustainable business ideas, and I think we're going to see a lot of grassroots coming out now. And that's a fun time to be alive.
You know, since things are starting to begin to feel a little unstable, I think we're going to start seeing the community come a little tighter and closer together to help us all get through it. It might take a little coaxing on other people's parts, but I think we're going to do it. This country has a history of doing that, so I think that we can accomplish that. And with two people like us getting on everybody's nerves, we will definitely accomplish it.
Because we can keep talking, I tell you.
All right. So is there any place or any way that my listeners can get in touch with you if they'd like to donate or participate in some of these activities you're opening up?
Well, now,
so, where can they email you, or can they go to your website? Go ahead and tell us what that is.
Yes. I would probably just choose our business line, which is 833-749-2947.
Okay. And they can touch base there, or will they get in touch with a human being when they call?
They'll get in touch with either me or the voicemail. So again, that number is 833-749-2947. If that is not enough and you'd like to look up our website, I'd encourage you to go to wixsite.com/Vital Axis, which is VITALAXIS. So one more time, I'll spell that, phwellness.wixsite.com/Vital Axis. And you would be able to see, some of our pediatric holistic wellness side of things. So feel free to try that.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on Laundry and Other Mysteries podcast, Linda, and thank you for chatting with me about laundry, because I could talk about that all day.
Well, I did learn that today, and actually it's pretty interesting that you can just weave that right back into the fabric of life. So thank you for creating such an intriguing podcast, Desiree, and it was an honor to be a part of this.
Oh, thank you so much.
Much love to the people.
Linda and I recorded this episode in early summer while things were still unknown about the coronavirus. Since we recorded our conversation, more information has come out about how to properly care for washable face masks. Hand washing is not recommended simply because experts are suggesting that face masks should be washed in water that is hot AF. That means very hot. And they are also recommending that you should wash your mask after every time you wear it. An unclean face mask is a compromised face mask and may increase the chance of the wearer contracting or spreading the virus. I guess it makes sense. You wouldn't use a used prophylactic to prevent an STD, so you probably should wear a clean mask to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. Feel free to drop in on social media to respectfully agree or disagree. My DMs are always open. Despite COVID-19 restrictions, there are still things going on in your local community. If you are in Colorado Springs, Colorado, you should make an appointment to stop by my office at Miriam's place and check out our monthly art show featuring the work of our monthly artist in residence. Every month, a local artist is featured in the atrium walkway at Miriam's place. If you can't make the art show in person, you can check out our live stream virtual art walkthrough at 4 p.m. Mountain Time on the second Tuesday of the month on the Miriam's Place Facebook page, and all month long. Check out Laundry and Other Mysteries on Facebook, where I will link to whatever updates my current and future guests choose to share with me so that you can get and stay engaged with all of the awesome people you meet on this podcast. Well, that's it. We made it to the end of another episode of Laundry and Other Mysteries. Thank you so much to my dear friend Linda Margrave for joining me on the show this week. We got to talk about laundry and some tips and helpful tricks to manage some challenging laundry events with our pets and with furniture. We talked about finding ways to connect with like-minded people in the community and share support and resources whenever possible. This was another jam-packed episode, my favorite kind. This episode, like every episode of Laundry and Other Mysteries, is researched and hosted by me, Desiree HIckson, also known as the Laundry Diva. If you would like to support this podcast and keep it on track and up to date, please consider a $5 monthly subscription to our Patreon at patreon.com/divaslaundryservice. You'll get to listen to every episode of this podcast ad-free, and you'll be able to enjoy extended features and swag that you won't be able to access anywhere else. In the meantime, don't forget to get those clothes out of the dryer, and we'll catch you in the next cycle. Laundry and Other Mysteries can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most other major podcast apps. You can find us on Facebook by searching Laundry and Other Mysteries Podcast, and on Twitter at Divas Laundry. And lastly, our soundtrack, Carnival Rides, is provided by A Bad Night for a Hero. You can find this song and other records at abadnightforahero.bandcamp.com.